Brother framed me for stealing family business money, got kicked out by parents. Years later, he's arrested for something illegal, and now they need my help. This is about my older brother who is 7 years older than me. He always seemed perfect to everyone, but in reality he was not as flawless as he appeared. He was good at fooling people and manipulating situations to his advantage. Our parents were so taken with his charm that they never questioned his actions. I'm 36 years old, working as an office executive in a legal firm. It's not a high-paying job, but it's decent. Despite coming from a prestigious family background where my great-grandfather was a renowned drug manufacturer, I've managed to build a fulfilling life for myself. My father, uncles, and many other relatives, including second and third cousins, look after the family's businesses. My father inherited a medical warehouse that supplies medicines to retail chains and drugstores. In my generation, there are two brothers, my elder brother, who is a doctor, and myself, who doesn't have any particular role in the family business. Unlike my brother, I don't have a medical degree or any other prestigious qualifications that align with our family's legacy. I'm just a college graduate who struggled to finish my studies on time. It took me 5 years to complete a 3-year program, which might make me seem incompetent or lacking in self-esteem. While I take responsibility for my shortcomings, my parents also played a role in shaping my less than ideal path. Ever since he was a child, he excelled in school, winning medals for academics and sports. Even while he was still in school, he helped out at our dad's warehouse. He was seen as incredibly smart and kind-hearted. Being 7 years older than me, he set such high standards that I never felt the need to compete. I simply accepted that I couldn't match up to him and didn't even try. Surprisingly, I never felt envious or resentful towards him. We had a normal, healthy brotherly relationship. He was always busy with his studies, work, and friends. Growing up with such an accomplished brother meant enduring constant comparisons and teasing from family, relatives, and even teachers. Being an average student and not particularly skilled in sports, I faced mockery and ridicule. In that tough situation, I needed to find a way to cope. I fell into the wrong crowd during high school and got involved in all sorts of mischief. With easy access to drugs from my father's warehouse, I became popular among the troublemakers. I even got caught twice, facing severe punishment and grounding from my parents. Being caught stealing only added to my reputation as the family's black sheep. Instead of addressing the underlying issues, my parents insisted I pursue medicine after high school, but I knew studying wasn't my strong suit. I opted for an accounting degree, much to their disappointment. In a family where most members are doctors or nurses, anything less than a nursing degree is looked down upon. My dad refused to finance my education, so I had to rely on student loans. When I left for college, my dad made it clear that he'd only provide pocket money until then. I accepted it without much reaction, knowing I lacked the drive to prove myself. College turned out to be a struggle, and I realized I couldn't expect much support from my parents. Any inheritance would likely favor my successful brother over me. So I decided to live it up in college, falling in with an even rougher crowd. I indulged in substances and took my sweet time, 5 years to finish a 3-year program. I didn't bother with part-time work to fund my education. Instead, I wasted my time on all sorts of illicit activities. After college, I had no clue what to do with my life. I floated in my own bubble for another 6 months until I was booted out of the college dorm. Job hunting proved futile due to my poor skills and laid-back attitude. I crashed at a rundown apartment with a friend until he asked me to leave. Then I couch-surfed at another friend's place for a while. Things took a turn for the worse when the bank started hounding me to repay my student loans. I was so broke I couldn't even afford a burger, let alone pay off my debt. My dad had cut me off financially long ago, leaving me to fend for myself. I scraped by with odd jobs, but the pay was barely enough to survive. I begged and pleaded with the bank officials for more time until they sent intimidating collectors to my doorstep, giving me a tight deadline to repay. Terrified and cornered, I had nowhere to turn. Desperate, I swallowed my pride and called my mom, begging for her help. Despite their reluctance, they needed my assistance because of my legal connections. I found it ironic that they turned to me after my brother had falsely accused me and caused my expulsion. Despite her pleas, I firmly declared my family dead to me and asked her to leave. The next day, my mother called, urging me to set aside past grievances and help the family. I couldn't help but laugh at her sudden concern for unity. I reminded her of their years of neglect and rejection towards me. She insisted it was time to unite as a family, but I hung up, refusing to entertain her hypocrisy. She called again, leaving a voice message chastising me for acting immaturely. While I had no intention of helping them, I also didn't revel in their misfortune. Despite months of planning to avenge my humiliation, I found no joy in their downfall. However, the overwhelming support and validation from others online strengthened my resolve to use this situation to reclaim my dignity. So when my mother called again seeking assistance, I agreed to return home and discuss the matter further. I returned home to find everyone surprisingly affectionate and caring towards me. However, I made it clear that I wasn't there for any nonsense. My brother had moved in with his family to our parents' house, as his own property had been seized pending investigation. They all pleaded for my help, with my brother shedding tears and attempting to embrace me. I recoiled, signaling him to keep his distance. I reminded them of the time when I begged for assistance and was instead branded a thief and forced out of the house. My brother apologized tearfully, but I dismissed his crocodile tears, insisting that his apology should be made publicly in front of the entire family and relatives. My mother scolded me for turning the situation into a spectacle, but I remained firm, stating that if they wanted my help, they had to swallow their pride. They called everyone, begging them to come. Most relatives ignored them, fearing legal trouble. Some showed up out of genuine concern, while others came for the drama. My brother confessed in front of everyone, admitting that he had stolen money from the family business to fund his illegal ventures and framed me to cover his tracks. When questioned about his betrayal, he justified it by claiming that our father wouldn't have approved of his business idea, and I was an easy target in my vulnerable state. Despite being praised for his success, it was his deceit that had propelled him. My uncle, who had always shown a softer side towards me, expressed regret for not helping me earlier but praised my resilience in overcoming adversity. This highlighted the reality that everyone wants to associate with success. Dad reminded me that they had fulfilled my condition, so now it was my turn to help them out of this mess. I offered to seek assistance from someone at my firm to represent the case, but I made it clear that it wouldn't be pro bono. Dad became furious, questioning why they needed my help if they had the means to hire any other lawyer. I shrugged off his anger, suggesting they find their own solution. After all, why should I pay for my brother's attorney when he had falsely accused me and made my life miserable? Dad, visibly agitated, reassured my mom, saying he would handle it himself, expressing frustration at wasting time seeking my help. I pointed out that, unlike my brother, at least I wasn't a fraudster. Despite their disappointment in their golden child, they continued to support him, even at the cost of disowning and humiliating me for the same crime. I warned them to stop enabling him or face the consequences. With my piece said, I left feeling satisfied that I had made my point. My revenge was complete. While I may have helped my parents navigate their troubles, I was infuriated by their continued support for my brother, showcasing their blatant double standards. Despite the confrontation, many cousins, uncles, and aunts reached out to apologize for not standing up for me earlier. I brushed off their apologies, feeling that it was too little too late. It was revealed to me that my brother had been arrested the previous month for manufacturing and selling unapproved drugs, resulting in an 8-year prison sentence. Although my dad had not been arrested, his involvement in my brother's illegal activities had disrupted his business and caused immense stress. The health department's scrutiny and legal troubles had brought his business to a standstill, leading to the loss of regular customers and suppliers. Getting involved in legal matters was proving to be disastrous for everyone associated with my brother's illicit business. But she hung up on me, saying I deserved my predicament. I then reached out to my only hope in that desperate situation, my brother. He had become a successful doctor with his own clinic. When I explained my urgent need, he asked for some time to consider. Despite knowing that I was unreliable with money, I pleaded with him, promising to repay as soon as possible. If he had declined to help, it would have been understandable, but what he did shocked me beyond belief. A week later, he called and said he had arranged the money. Without hesitation, I shared my bank details, including my PIN and password. The next day, my account was credited with an amount 4 times my education loan. When I asked why he sent so much, he revealed that he had liquidated his assets to help me. He then asked for full access to my account to transfer the excess funds back to him. Gratefully, I agreed. He withdrew the surplus, leaving me with enough to pay off my debt. I felt a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. However, my joy was short-lived. Within an hour, my dad called, screaming and accusing me of stealing from the family's business account. I was bewildered and had no idea what he was talking about. It didn't occur to me that my brother might have been involved until I returned home and saw the chaos firsthand. As soon as I stepped through the door, my father greeted me with a stinging slap, followed by a barrage of verbal abuse. They accused me of embezzling from the family business to pay off my debt. I was dumbfounded. They had somehow discovered my financial struggles, and my dad had noticed suspicious activity in his business account, which led to the revelation that the money had been transferred to my account. My brother concocted a story, alleging that I had stolen the funds, even presenting manipulated bank statements as evidence. I was speechless as he meticulously laid out the details, with disgust evident in the eyes of my extended family. I stammered, trying to defend myself, whispering to my brother that he was the one who transferred the money. but he played innocent, denying any involvement. When I contacted the bank, they revealed that the money had been transferred to an untraceable private account after initially being deposited into mine. It was clear that my brother had used my account to funnel the money from our father's business, then siphoned it off into his private account, leaving no trace. I was shocked by his betrayal. Confronting him privately, I pleaded for honesty, but he remained steadfast in his denial. My parents, blinded by their favoritism, rushed to his defense, while some family members doubted my guilt but offered no support. They demanded I retrieve the money, but I had no idea how to track it down. Dad was on the verge of calling the police to press charges against me, but my brother intervened, arguing that involving the authorities would tarnish the family's reputation. At first, I mistook his action for guilt, but soon realized it was his cunning at work. By preventing police and legal intervention, he shielded himself from scrutiny. He spun his intervention as a favor to me, claiming he saved me from legal trouble. Then he urged me to vanish from our family's life. Despite my innocence, I felt branded a criminal in their eyes. Unable to face them, I fled, running through the streets, tears blurring my vision. I collapsed on a sidewalk, sobbing uncontrollably. After walking aimlessly for hours, I took a bus to my apartment, vowing never to return to my family and to take control of my life. Over the next 8 years, fueled by anger and determination, I rebuilt my life from scratch. It wasn't easy, but the desire for justice kept me going, even though I knew I was no match for my brother and family's power. Therapy was out of reach given my financial situation. I had buried most of those painful memories until a recent event stirred them up again. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, unexpectedly showed up at my workplace seeking help. Despite cutting ties with my family, she tracked me down, desperate for assistance. She revealed that my brother was facing charges for dealing in illegal drugs, using the money he stole from me to fund his illicit activities. My brother received a warning from his partner and closed down the business a few months ago. However, the police are onto him, and his arrest seems imminent. I questioned why my sister-in-law sought my help when there were plenty of family members available. She explained that the police had shut down all of our father's warehouses, suspecting his involvement with my brother's illegal activities. Our family's accounts were frozen, and everyone was scrambling to protect themselves from the fallout. Some of my relatives mentioned that my parents seemed to have aged significantly over the last 6 months, regretting their blind trust in my brother. However, they still refused to acknowledge their mistreatment of me or express any remorse. I shrugged off their indifference, stating that I no longer needed them. The uncle closest to my dad revealed that my parents were considering selling everything and relocating to a secluded part of town or even the countryside to escape the constant judgment and gossip from neighbors and relatives. With my sister-in-law moving in with her parents after my brother's arrest, the family dynamic had further shifted. While I couldn't say I felt entirely satisfied or jubilant about the situation, I was relieved that the truth had finally come to light and justice had been served. As for the next story, it revolved around my college girlfriend cheating with fraternity guys at a party. We had met during freshman orientation at our university and quickly formed a strong bond. Over 2 years of dating, we grew comfortable with each other, although marriage or long-term plans were never on our minds. Despite my disdain for Greek life, my girlfriend had always dreamed of joining a specific sorority. When she successfully rushed and got in, I supported her decision, albeit with reservations about the sorority's culture. Unfortunately, her commitment to the sorority often left little time for us to spend together, straining our relationship. She was always busy attending parties, fundraisers, and campus events organized by her sorority. I felt like I was being left behind in some aspects. Our daily conversations dwindled to sporadic texts after she joined. When we finally met for lunch, I expressed my concerns. She assured me it was temporary and promised things would go back to normal once she settled in. Despite her reassurances, she began sharing some of the strict rules imposed by the sorority during that lunch. They expected their members to uphold certain standards to reflect positively on the sorority, regulating their dress, social interactions, and behavior to align with their values. As weeks passed, our relationship didn't improve. I cared for her deeply and wanted to be with her, but her involvement with the sorority created an emotional distance between us. Although I hesitated to pressure her to choose between us, the situation became increasingly stressful for me. One night, she invited me to a big annual frat party, despite my aversion to Greek life. However, I agreed to attend because I wanted to see her. Initially, it seemed unlikely that I could leave work early, but when the movie I was screening ended prematurely due to poor reception, I seized the opportunity to join her. The party was crowded, and I felt out of place, not knowing anyone except for my girlfriend. I spotted a couple of girls from her sorority, but I felt awkward approaching them. As I roamed the fraternity house, my heart raced with fear of what I might find. Climbing to the top floor, I cautiously peeped into a few rooms, hoping not to find her in a compromising situation. Unfortunately, my worst fears were realized when I stumbled upon her in a bedroom, engaging in intimate activities with two guys. Shocked and hurt, I stood frozen as one of the guys noticed me and yelled to leave. My girlfriend rushed to explain, but I slammed the door shut and left without a word. Despite her attempts to reach me, I ignored her calls and messages. The pain of betrayal lingered, and I eventually ended things with a clear message: we were over. I blocked her contact and immersed myself in my own life. Reflecting on the sorority's strict code of conduct she had shared with me, I couldn't help but wonder how her actions aligned with their values. Seeking revenge, I reached out to the sorority president to expose what had happened. Although I received no response, weeks later, my ex-girlfriend lashed out at me, blaming me for her departure from the sorority. Unmoved by her accusations, I saw it as the consequences of her actions. Cutting off all contact, I moved forward with my college life. There was a brief encounter in a class we shared, but she vanished soon after, presumably dropping out to avoid me.